So we are going to now discuss angles in Rn. That's the topic that we are going to take up today. And this is our lecture 8. All right. Okay. So far we have discussed. The notion of distance um, or norm, right? I think I prefer to have a paper color and yes and yes. Okay. So let's begin with recap. In the last lecture, I introduced the notion of distance or norm of a vector in Rn. The vector is in Rn, n-dimensional space. It's an n-tuple x1, x2 to xn, and this is a function to a real number. Actually, one can say even r plus. R plus indicates all real numbers which are 0 or positive. And it's a function which maps a vector in Rn to a non-negative number such that, we will directly use this, is greater than or equal to 0 always, in other words, and 0 if and only if the x vector is 0. This is usually very straightforward to check, as I told you last time. Now, if x and y are two vectors in Rn, then the distance function or the norm function has to satisfy this triangular inequality. And third is, it should satisfy the scalability requirement, which is that if I scale the vector by a scalar alpha, then the norm of x should also be scaled by the absolute value of alpha. If a function from Rn to R satisfies these three properties, it is called a norm function. It's a measure of distance. Now, I had three examples that I discussed here as illustrations. One norm, which is like the sum of the magnitude of the coordinates of x. This is also called as taxicab distance. We'll have more of it later on. Then the Euclidean distance, the shortest distance, aerial distance actually, which is sum of the square's square root. And the third is the infinity norm, which is maximum over I to 1 to n modulus of xi. And all of this actually comes from a family called the p norm, which is summation of x1 to the power p plus mod of x2 to the power p and so on up to mod of xn to the power p whole to the power of 1 by p. And limit p tending to infinity, this is equal to the infinity norm. Infinity is never a number, but you can show that this approaches this. I leave it to you to show it as a homework to improve to hone your mathematical skills. No, I have not checked triangular inequality in any one of these. With progression of time, I will probably check. But I want you to study and think about the triangular inequality and try to prove them to the extent possible. Now, today I am going to develop the notion of angle in Rn. And for that purpose, I am going to stick to the particular second norm or the Euclidean distance. I am going to develop the notion of norm with a specific notion of distance, which is the Euclidean distance or x1 square plus x2 square up to under root of xn square, the areal distance between any two. This I am going to derive notion of angle using a specific inequality known as Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, which states that absolute value of the dot product or x transpose y, which is a scalar, is always less than or equal to, or if I rather scale it by length of x, Euclidean distance of x and Euclidean distance of y, then this is always less than or equal to 1. If I use division, then of course I have to say provided x is not equal to 0 and y is not equal to 0. Other to write it, if you don't want to write this specifically, is to say that this is less than or equal to length of x times length of y. That means the dot product is always dot product or x transpose y is always less than the magnitude of this is always less than the length of x and length of y. So if any one vector is 0, then both LHS and RHS are 0. So straightforward equality. Otherwise also it is less than or equal to. So these are two alternate forms, but because I am using a division here, I have to be specific. Here I don't have to be specific that x is not equal to 0 and y is not equal to 0. Okay. Now this same thing I can alternately state as x transpose y divided by length of x times length of y is less than or equal to plus 1 and greater than or equal to minus 1, because the modulus is less than or equal to 1. That means the number could actually be between minus 1 to plus 1. Now one function which you can associate with something which comes in the interval of minus 1 to plus 1, minus 1 and plus 1 in inclusive is a sinusoidal function. So you could either call it as sine of theta or cos of theta. The question is, however, which one should I prefer? So now let me therefore go to a two-dimensional picture. I have this as x-axis and I have here a y-axis. Okay, I'll call it x1 and x2. It's better I call axes as x1 and x2. So this is a vector x and its coordinates are x1. So okay, let me call this as, yeah, x and y. Let me go back to this. I am going to call this vector x, I am going to call it as x1 x2 coordinates, and another vector y here and its coordinates I'm going to call y1 and y2. Okay, so these are my coordinates, and the angle that the x vector makes is theta 1 with respect to x-axis. This makes an angle of theta 2, and theta 2 minus theta 1 is theta. Okay, theta equal to theta 2 minus theta 1. Now if I look at cos of theta, then it becomes cos of theta 2 minus theta 1, which is cos theta 2 cos theta 1 plus sin theta 2 sin theta 1. Okay, now what is cos of theta 2 here? Cos of theta 2 here is this base by the, base by the hypotenuse, right? So therefore, cos of theta 2 is going to be y1 divided by under root of y1 square plus y2 square. And so sine of theta 2 is going to be perpendicular, which is y2. This is the y2, so which is perpendicular is y2 divided by again hypotenuse, which is y1 square plus y2 square. Similarly, cos of theta 1 is going to be x2. What is x2 here? This is x2 divided by under root of x1 square plus x2 square, and sine of theta 1 is going to be, I'm sorry, here will be x2 and here is going to be x1. Base is x. This is the base x1 divided by x1 square plus x2 square, and here is the hypotenuse with perpendicular with respect to theta 1. So it is going to be x2 divided by hypotenuse, which is x1 square plus x2 square. So you substitute these in this here, and what do you get? Cos of theta, cos theta 1, cos theta 2 product. So numerator will come x1 y1, denominator will come as under root of x1 square into x2 square times under root of y1 square plus y2 square, and then sine theta 1 sine theta 2. So when the denominator is the product of these two, which is already written here, so numerator itself I can write it as plus product of these two numerators, which is x2 y2. In other words, x transpose y divided by length of x, Euclidean distance, length of y. So now, motivated by this two-dimensional example, what do you see as the right thing to write here? Correct thing to write here is cos of theta, and this you can extend it to three dimension also. And so we are going to find cos of theta in Rn space as dot product x transpose y divided by length of x into length of y, where of course both the vectors are not zero. Angle between two non-zero vectors. Okay, that's great. Now you have notion of distance in Rn, and you have Euclidean distance notion in Rn, and you have notion of angle in Rn, and it is just expanding your geometry in second dimension and third dimension to n dimension. So here is a small homework problem now for you. You remember that example that I did from molecular biology, where I said that if the angle between the three items I, j and k is theta I, j, k, then in my optimization problem, I had a term which said that I wanted to look at the square of this, and this something had to be with some angle, a constant aijk. This had to be minimized. Now for three such atoms in the three-dimensional space, using this definition, complete this story and write the angle expression. Now you go back and you do that. You complete that part, and then you would also see how the nonlinearity in your objective function is increasing or changing, and it also quantifies your problem. Okay. Now that you know angle between the two vectors in an n-dimensional space, the next thing is definition of orthogonal vectors. What is orthogonal vectors? Two vectors x and y are orthogonal if they are perpendicular to each other, that is, angle between them is 90 degrees, or in other words, cos of theta is 0. So that means x transpose y divided by this is 0. Since the length vectors are non-zero, x transpose y should be 0. So two vectors which meet this property, that x transpose y are is 0, are actually said to be orthogonal vectors in n dimension. Okay. Now this, coming back to my definition of x transpose y by length of x times length of y, length of x times length of y, this can be written as x divided by length of x transpose by length y transpose this, which is like saying that I am looking at the unit vector in the direction of, suppose, unit vector in the times the unit vector in the direction of y, and this is cos of theta. So that's other way of looking at it. That so if this was my x and this was my y, and if this indicates a unit length vector, then complete the arc of the circle. This indicates the unit length vector here. So I call it as ux, I call it this as uy, and then ux transpose uy dot product is nothing but the cosine of the angle theta between the two. And now coming back here, so when you write it here, you see you will get something like this here. So you can see that your expressions have nonlinearity. That's why this course is about linear and nonlinear optimization. We will have to study both of it, but nonlinear optimization constraint much later. For the time being, we stick to our this particular thing that we are doing now. I have still not shown to you, this question must be bothering you. I have still not shown to you that this should be less than 1. Magnitude of this Cauchy-Schwarz inequality I have still not proven to you, and some of you must be really worrying, how am I going to prove it, or what is the proof to it? You would not be satisfied, I am sure. So some of you would definitely not be satisfied unless I give you a proof for it, and that's what I am now planning to do. Now I want to say two things before I prove. See, it has to be less than or equal to plus 1. So I could think of an optimization problem over over this and show that max is plus 1. Okay, and to show that it is greater than or equal to minus 1, I could take a optimization problem where I minimize this function, take this as my objective function, and show that global minimum, that's global maximum, and global minimum is minus 1. This is also global, not just local. This is a global identity. Now you would say, you have not developed any theory yet to do that? How are you going to do that? It's a good question, because one way to start it is like I have used this story earlier also, that if at maximum, if X star is either maximum or minimum, then, and it's an unconstrained optimization problem, then at least it should be a saddle point. And then, as I said, there are second order conditions to be shown and things like that. But I could go about doing it. That's called taking the known path. So I have to reach from point A to point B, and I have a known path, and I take a known path. However, not all problems should need to be solved using a standard way of approach and modeling and so on. Sometimes there could be easier ways, smart ways, intelligent ways, much higher level of common sense, so on and so forth, where you could need not even have done an optimization course, or you need to know all the optimality conditions, but you could use your common sense. Now, I always encourage all of you to learn such things and only learn through examples. I can only teach you through examples. The smarter things, you have to pick that smartness. All right. So let me show this, that how I can, without formally solving such problems, how I can show this inequality. And I'm still doing optimization. Remember that. Okay. So here is the trick that I'm going to do. If I'm going to use an inequality, a very simple thing, common sense thing. And so this is a proof by common sense that ax plus by transpose ax plus by is always greater than or equal to 0, where x and y are the two vectors in Rn, and a and b are constants or scalars. Okay. So this is basically what x is a vector in Rn, multiply it by a, it still becomes a vector in Rn. Similarly, by is a vector in Rn. So when you add it, it's a vector in Rn. So you take its transpose, so it is 1 cross n. This is n cross 1, and the product is therefore going to be 1 cross 1. And this is nothing but the square of the Euclidean distance of ax plus by. This is essentially the square of that. And so its square of the distance is always a non-negative quantity. So this is all I have sort of said here. Now I am going to choose constants. This is true for all constants a and b. So I am going to choose intelligently these constants a and b so that I can derive Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. So the first choice that I am going to do is take a as 1 by length of x, b as 1 by length of y. So ax is unit length vector in the x direction, and by becomes unit length vector in the y direction. Okay. Now when I expand this here, further down here, what is it that I am going to get? A square x transpose x plus b square y transpose y plus 2ab x transpose y. And this should be greater than or equal to 0. Now what is a square? A square becomes x transpose x by x square plus b square y transpose y becomes y transpose by square length of this plus 2ab x transpose y becomes the following, and this should be greater than or equal to 0. Now what is this numerator here? This is nothing but square of the length of x. So what becomes to this term? First term 1. Similarly, the second term is 1 plus 2x transpose y by length of x times length of y becomes greater than or equal to 0. Or in other words, x transpose y by length of x times length of y, 2 and 2 will cancel out. So this will become greater than or equal to minus of 1. So we have proved now we have proved now one part of this inequality, is it not? Which is the part that I have proved? I have proved this particular part of the inequality. Now I have to still prove that it is less than or equal to plus of 1. So let me do that now. Let me do that now. And for this, I am just going to change the choice of the constants a and b. So I am going to choose now a as 1 by length of this and b as minus of 1 by length of y. So then the first term is a square x transpose x. So that still remains this. Plus the second term is b square into y transpose y, but b square becomes this plus 2ab. So 2ab in this particular case, because b is negative, is going to be minus of 1 by length of x into 1 by length of y into x transpose y, and this should be greater than or equal to 0. Now again the first this is 1, this is 1, so I get 2 minus 2 x transpose y by length of x times length of y should be greater than or equal to 0, or x transpose y divided by length of x times length of y is going to be less than or equal to 1. So we have come to the conclusion that this is cos of theta, and this is always between, therefore, plus 1 and minus 1. Once I have said that it is cos of theta, it's always going to be between minus 1 and plus 1. Okay. Now, if two vectors are orthogonal to each other, right, that is they are perpendicular to each other, we saw that x transpose y r is equal to 0. Such vectors are called as orthogonal vectors. But if the length of x vector is 1, that is they are unit vectors, and length of y vector is also unity, and they are perpendicular to each other as stated earlier, then such vectors are called as orthonormal vectors. Okay, and in n dimension, if I stack, let's say this is one Rn, second orthogonal vector, and the last Qn as the last orthogonal vector, then this becomes a n cross n matrix, which is called, usually shown by Q, and is called a orthogonal matrix. A very simple example in Rn, you would say, would there be at least give me one example of orthogonal matrix in Rn. So I'll give you a very simple example. Let this be 1 0 0 0 n cross 1 vector, first column of identity matrix, Q2 be the second column of identity matrix, and Qn be the last column of identity matrix. Clearly, Qi transpose Qj is 0 if I is not equal to j. So Q is equal to In is actually a trivial orthogonal matrix. So the next thought that's going to come to your mind is, all right, fine. Can you give me a matrix which is non-trivial and orthogonal? Okay, I can do that. Let's take a two-dimensional case. This is x and let's say this is y, and this is your unit vector I hat and uh, unit vector j hat. All right, and now let me rotate it by an angle theta. So I'm going to rotate both this by an angle theta. They are perpendicular to each other. I hat and j hat are perpendicular to each other. So therefore, if I rotate this by theta and I want to maintain the perpendicularity, then I will have to rotate this also by an angle theta. All right. So if I rotate this by an angle theta, now what is the coordinate of this one? The x coordinate is cos of theta and the y coordinate is sine of theta for the A point here. And what is the coordinate? All right. So my A cos of theta sine of theta A, which if I write as first column of a matrix, then this is going to be cos theta and sine theta. And the second vector, it's a 2 by 2 cross 2 system. There are only two 90 degrees vector here. The B1, the y coordinate is going to be cos of theta because it makes an angle of theta with the y axis. So the y coordinate is cos of theta, and so therefore this distance is sine of theta. Horizontal distance is sine of theta, but it's in the negative x direction. So it becomes minus sine of theta. Now, if you look at this matrix as A in the 2 cross 2 matrix, you can see that if this column I call it as Q1, this is perpendicular to the second column Q2 because Q1 transpose Q2 is 0 minus cos theta sine theta plus cos theta sine theta, which is 0. Further, length of x is 1 unit vectors and length of y is also, Q1 is also 1 and length of Q2 is also 1. So there are two in this 2 cross 2 matrix. I have two columns Q1 and Q2 per orthogonal to each other and of each of unit length. Such a matrix is called as orthogonal matrix, and easy to verify that Q transpose Q is going to be equal to identity. So two things here. That means Q inverse is Q transpose. Q inverse is Q transpose. And second thing that I said, this is not only a non-trivial matrix, but I have infinitely many choices because theta can be anywhere between 0 to 2 pi and I have infinitely many choices on theta. Now you would say, okay, this matrix actually is called a Givens matrix, very special name for it. It has a very important place in matrix algebra. You would say, okay, this is an example in 2 dimension. Can you give me infinitely many choices in n dimension? Yeah. So this is one choice here. I'll call it as Givens I, J, and theta, which is that choose the first column to be identity matrix, first column to be the first column of identity matrix, second column to be second column of the identity matrix, and so on until you reach ith column, where the I cross I matrix I am writing it as cos of theta, and I comma j I am going to write it as s, and all other entries are here 0 0 0. After this again I continue with the corresponding column of identity matrix as my choice until I reach the jth column, when for I cross j entry, I will take minus s, and for this I will take c and everything else 0, and again I will continue with 0 0 0 and then 1 corresponding column of identity matrix until the last column of identity matrix. Now you can easily see that this is also an orthogonal matrix. You can check it out. Plus again I have shown you infinitely many choices of orthogonal. Now orthogonal matrix plays very important role in linear algebra, in optimization, and I will have more to say about it later on. Now we are going to stop this lecture here for today. We will meet again in the next class.